Hey everyone, Dr. Stein here, and welcome to the Season 3, Week 3 match analysis for the DDL. Before we begin, I'd like to make a few announcements. First of all, as you may have noticed from the release date of this video, I am very much behind. This is due to me last week being out of town and not having the time or being in the right mental space to properly get to work on this video. However, due to me wanting to catch up and also being behind for week 4, I will be doing a much more condensed match analysis. This will involve me doing a basic match summary of what tactics went into play, what more or less failed, and a key point or two to the coach's victory. If this becomes a preferred style in the future, you all can let me know in the comments below if this ends up being the preferred version of the match analysis going forward, or if you prefer how I've been doing things for the last 2 videos. With that out of the way, let's get straight into the matches. To start us off, we have Spoods versus Kyoma. Unfortunately, this was not Kyoma's week, seeing as from turn 1 we have a focus miss on Kyoma's behalf via Thunderous Theory. This miss was huge due to the fact that Spoods stayed in with Bisharp, not terastallizing it either, leaving Kyoma to face the rest of the match 5 versus 6. For the better part of the first half, we see Spoods actually have very good prep on his behalf. Terra Dark Sucker Punch from the Bisharp, and Solar Beam Will-O-Wisp on this Torkoal that shuts down the Aqua Paldean Tauros. Kyoma halfway through finally gets grasp of fresh air, able to get the Battle Bond off this Greninja. However, once again, excellent prep from Spoods' part, having the red card Sneasler survive the boosted Hydro Pump from the Greninja, and gets that Battle Bond Greninja out of there. From then on, it's the Spoods show, with his final trick being the Choice Scarfed Indeedee. Gets the jump on Greninja, trying to come in to revenge kill it. With only 2 Mons remaining and one of them being choice locked, Kyoma goes down to this Life Orb Cura, with Spoods winning week 1 3-0. Next up we have Dusty versus Maki. Dusty opens up very well the first few turns with his Flygon, which has Agility, Paranormal Boom Burst, Earth Power for stab coverage, and Throat Spray to increase that special attack. Right out the bat, it does over half the damage to this Primarina, and now Maki is on the defensive. After a couple rounds of rock paper scissors via Protect and Leftovers to recover as much health as possible on this Primarina, Maki finally gets in the Skeleturge for free. However, it gets 2-hit KO'd. Maki finally gets in the Arboliva for free, which does end up taking out a Flygon. This is the 3rd week we will see Maki attempt to go for the Strength Sap, Leech Seed, Arboliva. 3rd time's the charm, as they say, and Maki showing a new trick in Lumberry Arboliva to get rid of that toxic that's been plaguing the Arboliva ever since this season started. After a couple of switches from both sides, we see Dusty continuously getting the upper hand, but now via moveset of this Mew. We see the Volt Turn take out the Primarina upon switching, and then the Ice Beam able to take out Sandy Shocks. We then see Annihilate put a damper on the Strength Sap shenanigans via Defiant, taking out this Arboliva once and for all. Endgame revolves a lot around King Gambit and Annihilate. King Gambit not falling for a failed Sucker Punch predicts the read and brings that Ogerpon down to its 30 on 1% health. Dusty now correctly predicts to get the Sucker Punch off. Doesn't risk it the 2nd time in case Maki wants to set up with this Latias. And we see Annihilate just barely survive the last hit from that missed ball actually gets the Defiant boost from the special attack drop, which guarantees Rage Fist taking out this Latias in one hit, leaving Dusty winning week 3 4-0. Up next, we have Frozone versus Will, a battle of giants. Neither of these coaches have lost yet, meaning that only one of them will come out undefeated. A good couple of plays on both ends, and very excellent sets as well. For example, we have the full support Bronzong rocking Trick Room and Gravity, something rarely ever seen in Draft. As Stealth Rock is his third supporting move, leaving Earthquake as the only offensive move on this Bronzong. However, we see later on in the match that ends up being Will's downfall, or at least one of them, seeing as he has no way to attack Frozone's Clefable, which will be pivotal later on. Early on, unfortunately, Will and Empoleon to be burned, which normally wouldn't be too much of an issue if not for the fact that this Empoleon was actually physical this week, weakening the Earthquake damage on that Volcanion. However, Frozone is not without fault either. We see him going for a Terra Poison at a very awkward moment in the match, increasing the Poltergeist damage from the Houndstone. A couple of back and forths later, we now get on to late game. At turn 22, where Frozone starts setting up with his Clefable. The Calm Minds keep coming, and this Clefable quickly becomes a problem. For the rest of the match, we don't get to see what that fourth move on Clefable is. However, these three moves, Moonblast, Moonlight, and Calm Mind, are more than enough to take out the rest of Will's team, resulting with Frozone beating Will 4-0. Moving on, we have Harvey versus Justin. Harvey starts out strong, the booster attack energy booster on his Iron Thorns. He also goes Dragon Dance turn 1, taking advantage of Justin's switching. While we see Harvey rack up some damage, unfortunately he loses all momentum with a Supercell Slam miss, resulting in Spathra taking it out. However, we see not all is lost, as this very defensive Infernape comes through, opening up more holes in Justin's defense. We see this especially true with not only being able to switch into Entei's Sacred Fire, but living a stopping tantrum on 1 HP. This momentum shift allows Harvey to get a foot back into the playing field. However, from here on, Harvey unfortunately goes through a series of switches, which ends up allowing this Iron Hands to continuously break down Harvey's team. Infernape, once again, being the MVP on Harvey's team right now, getting a surprise KO on Justin's Meowscarada. Unfortunately, this allows Justin to bring out his Rillaboom, leaving Harvey at checkmate, due to Infernape not being at full enough health to take on a Grassy Terrain boosted Grassy Slide. Rillaboom cleans up the rest of Harvey's half of the team, allowing Justin to win week 3 4-0. We now have Finley versus Beamer. Finley starts off turn 1 very brave, going for a Volt Turn in front of the Kilowattrel. You see that his bravery pays off as the Volt switch actually hits it, revealing that this Kilowattrel is not Volt Absorb, something we rarely see. This immediately allows Finley to go with a good amount of momentum for the next couple of turns. We see Beamer playing very defensively for a good couple of turns to turn 14, where he gets a good clean double switch in for free and starts setting up Calm Minds. However, the Arcalodon is still faster, gets a Thunder Wave off, lands it, heavily nerfing this Hoopa Unbound's peak potential. We see immediately how bad it gets next turn, as the Garganacl comes in for free, but not before seeing the Keyberry go off on this Lupa Unbound. Very interesting, which raises its defense. However, it won't do it much good as the Salt Cure comes out from this Garganicle. Gets paralyzed again on its last turn of life, going down to the Salt Cure damage. We see this Garganicle simply pulling the rest of this remaining team as it gets another Salt Cure off this Iron Valiant that's already activated its booster energy speed. Finley, seeing that he's getting nowhere with leaving Garganicle in, despite the Salt Cure damage and him recovering, decides to go into his Clodsire, which can also recover but at least resist the Drain Punch. Beamer tries to get a little nasty with it, seeing the Destiny Bond here. However, the Salt Cure damage was not enough to take it down. The Destiny Bond will not activate. Finley going for a safe move, and Stealth Rock pays off. We see this Kilowattrel actually putting up a fight, landing all its hurricanes, getting the confusions off, both on the Clodsire and on this Rotom Heat, which nearly kills itself in confusion. Finley, not wanting to risk damage on anything else, decides to allow this Rotom Heat to die here, resulting in Beamer at least finally not going 6-0 this week. However, as we'll see, this is as many kills as Beamer will get as he switches in his Iron Valiant for some reason. Lets it die to Stealth Rock. He sees that he does not outspeed its Keldeo, revealing it to be Scarfed. And Keldeo will clean up the rest of the match, resulting in Finley winning 4-0. Our last match is Deepav versus Lou. Deepav actually have the initial advantage here, seeing as his lead was very good against Lou's Darkrai. However, Lou makes an excellent switch into his defensive Alomola. Deepav decides to return in kind with his own switch, Goldengo. However, we see that the Goldengo has the air balloon but loses it immediately, with Alomola switching out via flip turn. This allows Lou to get his Darkrai in, threatening the Goldengo. Deepav, not wanting to lose very precious bond so early, goes into his Enamorus, which eats up the Dark Pulse very well. Enamorus going first gets the Moonblast off, revealing the Focus Sash on the Darkrai, and also getting the special attack drop as well, which we see is very vital in allowing this Enamorus to live the Sledge Bomb that comes out on 6%. However, after this turn, everything goes downhill for our good old friend Deepav, where Lou regains momentum via flip turn, gets in his Raging Bolt for free, which C has the booster energy for special attack, survives the Terra Ice Blast, takes out the Jolteon, and also takes out the Enamorus via Thunderclap. After a couple turns, we see Great Tusk come in and putting in the work, scaring off the Donphan, allowing the Goldengo to get in for free, trying to go for a rapid spin, but it immediately gets outsped and goes down to a headlong rush. Although Deepav was able to get Lycanroc in for free, the Great Tusk does not die to Psychic Fangs, living on 8%. Lou gets the rapid spin off, allowing it to outspeed this Lycanroc Tusk next turn. However, Deepav tries to take out this Great Tusk with an Excel Rock, which unfortunately does not work because it lives on 1% health, despite the defense drop from the Headlong Rush. This Great Tusk will not die and takes out the Lycanroc. The Deoxys defense comes out, the Lou wanting to conserve this Great Tusk switches his out into his Alola Ninetales, who gets ejected via red card that the Deoxys defense was holding, but unfortunately into the worst matchup, being the Darkrai, on the exact turn where he was just about to set up spikes. Darkrai takes it out with a critical hit from the Dark Pulse, switches out again, not to risk an Ice Shard from the Donphan, and takes out Deepav's remaining Mon with the Alomola. allowing Lou to win 6-0 against DPAP. And that concludes our match analysis. We will now be moving on to the weekly awards, starting with Set of the Week. Our nominees for Set of the Week are Spoods, Dusty, and Maki. Third place goes to Maki and the Harvest Lumberry, I believe. Besides the regular moveset that this Arboliva has been packing, it was very interesting to see Lumberry added to the mix, resolving the issue of always being toxic. Thought it worked out very well and actually being a very annoying obstacle for Dusty to have to overcome for the rest of this match. Second place goes to Dusty and his Will-O-Wisp Solar Beam combo on the Torkoal. Both moves not only put a stop to the Eldean Taurus Aqua, but also took it out as well. It came as very much a surprise to Kyoma, allowing Spoods to further his advantage for the rest of that match. First place goes to Dusty with his Agility, Boom Burst, Earth Power, Throat Spray, Flygon. Was that a mouthful? Although we didn't get to see what the fourth move was, just these three moves alone put a massive hole to Maki's team very early on, allowing Dusty to keep much of the momentum on his side for the rest of the match, securing him a 4-0 against Maki. So congratulations to Dusty and his Flygon for getting first place. Our next award is Play of the Week, and our nominees are Dusty, Frozone, and Finley. Third place will go to Finley, landing the Thunder Wave with his Arcalodon on the Hoopa Unbound. Saw the Hoopa Unbound go for a Calm Mind right after that paralysis landed. That paralysis played a pivotal role, shutting down 2 turns, rendering it mostly out of commission for the rest of its duration. Second place will go to Frozone on turn 22, starting to set up Calm Minds with his Clefable, to set up and sweep for endgame. I mentioned turn 22 specifically because it's at this point where we see the entirety of Bronzong's moveset. And Frozone, realizing it does not have a steel type move, has no need to worry about it doing anything. He sets up his Calm Minds, proceeds to finish the rest of the game with that Clefable getting a 4-0 on the rest of those teams. First place goes to Dusty in his King Gambit read to the Ogerpon Pigeon. Dusty could have very easily gone for a Sucker Punch, fearing that Latias taking it out. However, he correctly guesses and reduces the Ogerpon down 1 HP from the sturdy. And then the following turn predicts right with a Sucker Punch, allowing his endgame to result the way it did, a 4-0 victory. So congratulations, Dusty, for another award in a row in a very good prediction game. Next up, we have Fail of the Week. And I actually want to add some honorable mention. Our honorable mentions go to Frozone, Terra poisoning his Brute Bonnet at a very awkward moment in front of the Houndstone. Will and the Apollyon unfortunately switching in on the Steam Eruption, which burns him, heavily nerfing the earthquake damage that probably could have taken out that Volcanion. And lastly, the Beamer, who unfortunately did not calculate the Salt Cure damage correctly and did not get his Destiny Bond death off, which could have been very interesting. Now, we move on to our official nominees. We have Yoma, Harvey, and Deepath. Third place goes to Harvey in his continuous pivoting and switching out mid-game. Unfortunately, Although Harvey had a foot back in this race, he lost it the moment he started switching out continuously. Saw it with the flip turn on the Iron Bundle, the U-turn on the Infernape, and unfortunately he just kept taking in free damage, allowing Justin to set up a perfect endgame with Rillaboom sweeping via Grass Eagle. Next up, we have Deepav. Deepav actually has two fails I want to go over. One being Lycanroc failing to take out the Great Tusk, despite it suffering -1 defense drop. Psychic Fangs couldn't take it out, and Accelerock left it on 1% health. And then the red card on the Deoxys defense, which unfortunately forcefully switched in the worst matchup for that Deoxys defense, being that Dark Rat, and it dying to a crit Dark Bolt. Finally, our Fail of the Week award goes to Kioma. It's nothing specific, it's just the game in general. This was not Kioma's week, as I mentioned early in this video. From turn 1 to the focus miss, to being red carded and forcefully being ejected after getting the Battle Bond boost on the Greninja, and also suffering a complete shutdown on that Aldean Tauros Aqua from that Torkoal. So Kioma is the winner of this week's Fail of the Week. We now move on to Nickname of the Week, and our nominees are Spoods, Harvey, and Deepav. Third place will go to Harvey and his Ryu the Infernape. Very nice Street Fighter reference. Personally, I would have preferred it if he named it Ken. Kind of more fire based. But regardless, he still is a fighting type. Ryu still fits in pretty well. And I personally very much like the nickname. Second place will go to Deepav and his Darius the Dawnfang. I like the League of Legends reference. I'm hoping it's a League of Legends reference, especially with the fact that both spin. They're not spin to win, as that's reserved for a different champion. Rarely anyone spins better than Dawnfang. A very nice nickname on Deepav's behalf. In first place will go to Spoods and his War Criminal the Torkoal. A very fitting nickname considering what this Torkoal did, and a very funny one at that. So congratulations to Spoods for winning Nickname of the Week. And finally, we have Game of the Week, and our nominees are Spoods vs Kioma, Dusty vs Maki, and finally Frozone vs Will. Third place will go to Spoods vs Kioma. Although it wasn't Kioma's week, it was still a very interesting match to see nonetheless. This was actually the closest match we had all week. So despite Kioma having all odds against him, he was still managing to bring it back turn after turn. Although unfortunately ended up with a loss, it was very entertaining to see nonetheless. Second place will go to Frozone vs Will. As I mentioned before, it was a battle of the giants to see who would continue to be undefeated between these two. But besides that, this matchup actually has some lore in the DDL. There was, better yet said, a running joke that Will was Frozone's kryptonite, especially considering the fact that Will was the only one to be Frozone Season 1. So this match had a bit of lore going into it, and seeing Frozone beat Will in a very convincing manner, might I add, was quite the sight to see. However, our Match of the Week award will go to Dusty vs Maki. The prep on both ends was actually very well done. We saw Protect being used the right way this week on that Primarina, continuously regaining health with the leftovers, but the sets on both ends were very nice as well. Seeing Maki learn from past failures, adding Lumberry and Harvest to the mix, on this, I believe. And that end game, with Dusty predicting turn after turn and playing out of his mind this week. The best performance from Dusty by far. So congratulations to Dusty and Maki for winning Game of the Week. And that concludes our weekly awards. Unfortunately, I do not have the actual standings for week 3 nor for week 4, spoilers. However, I promise that by the week 5 analysis video, I will have the appropriate standings up to date and ready to be shared. So once again, please forgive me for the tardiness, but I appreciate your patience nonetheless. Although I am behind on the week 4 video, I still would like to give the week 4 schedule. And the schedule for week 4 is Deephav versus Will, Lou versus Justin, Frozone versus Finley, Maki versus Kiyoma, Harvey versus Spoods, and Dusty versus Beamer. And that concludes the week 3 match analysis. Thank you to everyone very much for watching and your continuous support on this series. I apologize once again for the tardiness of this video. Hopefully you all were still able to enjoy the way I analyze these matches. And once again, with this video and the next, let me know how you feel about the way I'm analyzing these matches. It's more condensed form. If this is something you're more interested in, let me know, or if you prefer how I was doing things the first 2 weeks, also please let me know. Your feedback is very much appreciated and will help me decide moving forward how I'll continue to be doing these match analysis videos. Thank you once again, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.